It's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to get my tripod set up, miss. Okay? First up, we have Stargazer. So what I did to separate them, because I let them hang out together, you know, during the day and at night, pretty much any time other than when I'm working them. They're really easy. I just go in, I walk in there, and I open the round pen gate, or if it's already open, I kind of just stand at the center, and Nora kind of figured out that she likes to go in there, so easy enough to separate them. And then right away I kind of let him get settled into his comfortable spot, which seems to be facing the gate, probably so he can see Nora, which is good with me. And then I go into the process of getting him used to the whip touching his neck, and then of course inching down on the whip so I can touch his neck with my hand. Something that I'm trying to get better at is being more aware of my horse and really paying attention. And, you know, part of the gentling process and everything is that you do kind of have to push them a little bit outside of their comfort zones. But there's also a point where you want to respect the fact that they're learning and not keep going just because they're tolerating it. I want to look for some sort of relaxation. So what I'm doing right here is preparing him for the halter. We've worked on touching the neck with the stick and having the string go over the other side. So what I do is kind of take the whip, since it's an extra long one, and I wrap it around the nose, make sure he doesn't have any big muzzle sensitivities.
Good boy.
Good, and his favorite thing to do is reach out and sniff, so I keep using that as kind of that confirming and reassuring point with him. This isn't the best angle, but every single time before I go up to him again, I see if he wants to reach out and kind of touch my hand, and then I may go for petting the cheek or going back to touch the neck with the whip. So whenever I add something new to these feral horses, I always go to the familiar thing that they're okay with and then add the new thing. So it's the same way when I'm touching new body parts on them. So if I'm going to touch his cheek or his nose or anything, I always go to the neck first and then the new body part. So now you can see what I'm working on with him is holding the halter that I'm going to be using. Sometimes they get a little bit wary when there is a new object in sight with them. So I'm going to see what his threshold is here. I like that he reached out and sniffed it, so I'm going to take it away and reward him for it. It's kind of the same thing how they can be okay with one hand touching them, but then sometimes when you introduce two hands, they get a little bit nervous, so you have to go slow and sometimes even run that second hand up with your first hand, if that makes sense. So the same way that introducing tools like, I mean, it could even be a whip if I just started with my hands, but a whip or a halter, you try to do that familiar thing of touching with your hand first, and then instead of me just haltering him right away or trying to, which obviously we would be pretty unsuccessful right now if we just tried to halter him like a normal horse, I'm going to rub him with it and kind of build his comfort and make sure he realizes it's nothing to be afraid of and it's not going to hurt him. You may notice that I never really look at the horse directly in the eye when I'm next to them, and I also try to keep my body position in a space that is most comfortable to the horse. So some of them like my chest to be facing the same way, some of them like me to be standing directly in front of them. There's all different orientations that may be more comfortable to that horse at first, and it's basically whatever's going to be the less intimidating spot. Obviously, eventually they're going to have to get used to me standing any way possible, but at the beginning I'm trying to just work with them in the most comfortable way. Right there, I liked that he looked at me and kind of was curious, so I'm going to release And I think it may just be like an old tale that I heard somewhere that you're never supposed to look the horse directly in the eye, especially if you're close to them. I can't remember where that originated from with me knowing that and kind of following that. Um, so I can't really say if there's a science behind that or not. I just don't really tend to do it. I try not to look at them too intensely in the eye, especially when I'm right next to a wild one. Good. So you saw there how he kind of took a step away when that halter was on him, but he let me stick with him, keep it on him. And then when he moved back or calmed and relaxed his body, I removed the halter to kind of reward him. So what I'm going to do here is prepare again for the haltering. And this is similar to me reaching under his neck to grab the halter to bring it around. So then I have it all the way around his neck. So I just wanted to see what his reaction was to seeing my hand out of that other eye. Of course, I'm not going to add any pressure because that wouldn't be the smartest idea right now. Again, kind of just lightly letting him touch it with his face because I want to see his reaction. I found some Mustangs are really sensitive when the rope or any material touches their nose, so I'm always curious to find out if they're one of the more sensitive ones or if they're pretty forgiving and very sweet about it.
No, the tail end of it is kind of weird.
So he's definitely curious of the little tassel on the end of the rope there, but I'm loving all of his reactions right now to the rope and me kind of fake haltering him from a ways away. It doesn't seem like there's any major sensitivity parts on his face. So this time when I go in with the halter, he moves and it kind of falls off, but I like that he doesn't take off or freak out or anything. He's just kind of seeing the halter right now as like a fly irritant. And honestly, the most difficult part of this all is that I'm just trying to keep us in frame here, so bear with me as the angles keep changing because I have to keep going and readjusting my camera. So now that he's had a little bit to snack on, because he keeps trying to go down and eat some of the hay, I'm hoping I can have him still long enough just to slip this over.
Good boy.
So right now what I'm kind of mimicking is when that lunge whip goes over and I'm able to reach underneath and pull it out from the other side.
Good.
And I think the most important part of this is to not rush and go too fast, because just because you have the halter over on one side and I'm able to reach under and pull it, I want to be fair to him and not just try to put it on right away. I do want to reward him standing still and tolerating the fact that I'm kind of messing around with this halter with him. So again, this time when I pull the halter under, I'm not necessarily going to take it away right away. Good, and now he was super sweet right there, and he already has figured out to kind of tip his nose towards me.
Good boy. Good boy.
And one of my favorite parts of that was he was being really tolerant of me trying to kind of shimmy that rope halter up above his nose, and when he went to take a step away, whether it be just to either walk away or to kind of go at a fly, he didn't react when I had to let go of that halter. Another thing that you really have to practice when you're working with these horses that don't know how to give to pressure yet is make sure that you don't hold on, because they don't know what that means. They don't understand pressure yet. So if they move, you just kind of have to let go or stick with them the best you can without scaring them. So of course it's off screen, but we have the halter on, and then as quick as I can, I'm going to try to tie it in a knot and then back away and give him a release, and then I'll adjust it later on and try to tighten it up a little bit more.
So weird. So
And now that it's tightened up a little bit more and a little bit more snug to his face, it's a little bit safer. And I'm going to let him hang out with it on for a while just to get used to the feel of it being on his face.
Sniff.
And right here, I'm hoping that he'll reach over and sniff one
He
more
says
time.
no,
Of
I
course,
want to eat
he would
hay.
rather just
I know.
hang out and eat hay. His tolerance for it is up. He's like, alright, lady, I worked for you. Let me go about my day now.
You're so brave. Good boy.
So next up, we have Nora.
Is so curious today. I gotta set up this camera, girl. You gotta wait for your session. What are you doing? Hey. You know, this isn't the best place for you to be for me to focus my camera. You gonna get the lens all dirty, huh?
Similar to Stargazer, I'm going to start out with petting her on the neck with the stick, and she is a little bit different from him in the sense that she doesn't really like to reach out and sniff at all. However, I do like that today in this session she is giving me her head more and wanting to look at me at least after I give her that release of backing away and taking the pressure off. I actually have to do smaller increments with her when I first start the session, so instead of inching up on the whip in bigger sections and maybe getting there after 2 or 3 tries, with her it usually takes 4 or 5, so I do a lot of releasing with her and making sure that she's just comfortable with it. She is one that likes to walk off as we're working, so again, what I do there is I stick with her and I kind of play around with my body language and my energy, and I may have to take an extra step in front of her to get her to slow down. As soon as she slows down, I back off, take that pressure away, and make sure she doesn't feel trapped at all. So now I'm working on transitioning from the whip to just my hands for this session. And again, when she goes to walk off, I'm going to stick with her. When she stops, I stop, and then I move closer again to try to pet.
Good girl.
Again, I really like, even though it's super subtle, just the fact that she looks in at me there and takes that little half step. You can tell there's a lot of cuts in this video because obviously she kept moving around a lot. She doesn't like to stay still for a long time. So what I'm practicing right here is just a quicker version of what you saw with Stargazer, where I'm reaching under, pulling that string from the whip to kind of mimic haltering, and then putting it around her nose. Now with her, I can be a little bit closer to put it around her nose. I don't have to be quite so far away. And now I have the halter. I figured you guys saw all of the steps I did with Stargazer, so you'd figure it'd be pretty similar with Nora here. But I introduced her to the halter by rubbing it on her neck first and seeing if she wanted to sniff it. And we did the prep for her nose being touched with a rope with the stick, and now I'm ready to slip her nose into this halter. You can see when she gets distracted and looks to the side, I can't use the pressure from the halter to get her to face me again. I kind of just have to wait it out and see what she wants to decide. Now there, she started to back up, but I liked that she stopped and she was calm. So I took the halter away despite the fact that I was going to attempt to put it on that time. Sometimes that's just how things go, where you have to accept a little bit, feel good about it, and then release. Similar to Stargazer, she is going to move around a little bit as I'm putting the halter on, and of course back off of screen so you actually won't be able to see her get her very first haltering. This is the one downside to not having someone with me to video and relying on tripods. So I'm going to wait for her to stand still one more time, and then I'm going to give her a release for just standing still and letting me stick with her.
Good girl.
And then moving along to the haltering, and this time I stuck with her for the whole time until I got it on, where she actually only went 1 or 2 steps further off screen. But sometimes they can get into a habit of thinking, oh, okay, backing up was the correct answer because then the pressure came off, rather than seeing it the way that I see it, where I'm like, oh, you tolerated it for that long and then you stood still, so I'm going to take it away. So this time when she went to back up, I stuck with her. And just a little side note, all of that mud that they have on them is not from my facility. They came with that from the Utah facility. And I am looking forward to being able to curry comb it off.
Much better, kid.
So this clip was right after I adjusted it to make it a little bit more snug and safe on her face. And the same thing, she's going to wear it for a little while, get used to it, get comfortable with it, and then I'll start taking them on and off every day. But I was super pleased I was able to get both of them haltered. It was either their second or third session, and really I haven't put hours and hours into them. They've had just a few short sessions here and there, especially since I'm doing this voiceover right now. I've probably had them for about 6 days at this point. Um, in this video, I think this was day 2, but I'm super pleased with them, and I can't wait for you guys to follow the rest of their journey.